a small talk focused on the topic of English language assessment. The reason this is a topic that I feel is very important is that everywhere we go as Amideast, and I'm sure my colleague Radi from Amra will echo this, and I know that Ibrahim, the regional director of ETS, when he was here, heard this during his recent visit, that although you will meet Palestinian students and employees and business people and others who do have good English language communication skills, it's anecdotal, it's too few and far between, and more often we hear from universities, for example, that say we wish that the students that were coming in from the school system had a higher level of English, and then employers say to universities, we really would like to hire more of your graduates for certain kinds of jobs, but we find that their English language skills for jobs that require English is not where, it's not up to expectation. So that reminds me that I have a slide about expectation, if this works. How is it that we know where people stand in terms of their English language proficiency, and based on the needs of a school that's trying to decide how to place their students at a particular level, or a university that has a certain standard for English language proficiency among its graduates. They would like to have a reputation of graduating students that have at least a certain minimum level of English language skills, or an employer who needs a certain level of English language for their employees to perform at on the job. How are they to know if their students or graduates or employees have that level? And assessment is how you do that. We at Amideast have experimented with this. I know other institutions have experimented with this and tried to sometimes design our own little ways of figuring out people's English. For example, for a scholarship program, we do a lot of screening of English for people interested in studying in the United States. Thank you very much. And we find that we are not very good. We're amateurs, frankly, when it comes to designing an effective, truly accurate assessment tool. And I think from talking to employers and talking to universities and schools, they often will admit something similar. They have an in-house way of doing that they developed, and it doesn't always give them accurate results in the end. So we have decided to work with ETS, which is a global, and it's been around for a long time, and they have tremendous resources and staff, and have done a lot of research. I like that slide. Where'd that go? Bring that back. That's what I wanted to talk about. ETS has a global stable of very well-trained, educated researchers in psychometrics and language assessments, not just English, actually multiple languages, but for our purposes, And for many people I talk to here, it's English they care about the most. And they know how to design these kind of assessment tools. So, you know, these kind of language proficiency assessments are used for all kinds of different purposes. I was talking about some that we use them for scholarship screening. Employers use them for a different purpose. Schools and universities for others. So an assessment method can differ completely with respect to the kind of evidence you're looking to provide about the person you're evaluating as to whether they are the right fit for a particular level of learning, or a job, or something else, a scholarship in the States. My colleague, Dr. John, mentioned briefly that there's a type of assessment called formative assessment and summative assessment. The ETS assessment tools that we and AMRA are using can be used for both. They can provide feedback to educators who want to monitor and track the progress of their students' English language learning through different levels and types of skills. And they are mapped to what's called the Common European Framework of Reference, CEFR. This for us is, we have our sense as Adventist, of course, about what is proficient and what is not, but the CEFR is internationally recognized across the globe by educators and employers as being a very effective way to determine what someone's skills are in what area, and they have their codes A1, A2, B1, B2C. Probably many of you who are in the education field are familiar with the CEFR and their levels. The ETS assessment tools for English are mapped to those. So whatever score one receives, one can map it to a CEFR level. If your academic plan for that student is you want to start them at this, you need students at this level and they need to move to that level on the CEFR, you can use one of these standardized assessment tools from ETS to do that. For us, we use something called the ITP. It's the Institutional Testing Program. It is similar to the famous TOEFL. I think everybody knows what the TOEFL is, but not everybody knows what the ITP is. Now, we're at a technology conference. The ITP has not yet moved online. However, the TOEFL has, and as different kinds of learning moves online, assessments are moving online, and ETS is keeping up with that with some of its assessment tools, though not all of them. So the TOEFL, which I think everybody knows, if you want to go to college or university, pretty much in the English-speaking world anywhere, especially the United States, but all Canadian universities, Australian, many in the UK, all accept the TOEFL as their evidence-based standardized assessment tool of incoming international students' English proficiency, and they use it as a high-stakes decision-making factor in whether they're going to admit that student. So it's a big deal, and I think that's why we get more questions about that test than anything else. There are, thankfully, online ways to prepare for the TOEFL, as well as something called the TOEIC. We had a lot of people here from the private sector, which I'm very happy about. I feel that the private sector and the education sector need to get together more often and talk about their needs and how they're linked. The TOEIC is a test of English for international communication and is for international workplace English. It is also mapped to the CEFR. It is not academic like the TOEFL. It is workplace English. We use it at An-Najah to screen people that we're thinking about hiring because we expect a certain level of English. and we trust we're going to get accurate results with that particular international assessment tool. Here's a quick summary of some of the TOEFL family of assessment tools that we use from ETS at different levels. They're all mapped to the CEFR. And then I was going to have, we only have 2 minutes, a brief discussion about some of your needs and how international standardized assessment tools can help meet them so that you have more accurate and certain results about your decision making. But I think, given the time, what I would prefer to do is let you know actually about something that we're working on with ETS and AMRA for the future. We are designing a survey. We actually want to hear from you and others who may not be here about your challenges and your needs and issues you may be having with regards to English language proficiency in Palestine. We want data, we want evidence, we want input, because we will then be designing a workshop to discuss the results and figure out a path forward. How do we improve English language proficiency in Palestine? We need evidence and data first, so we understand the extent of the issue and where to go from there. I think ETS's assessment tools are a good way to do that, and there are other ways to do that. So stay tuned for a survey that we will try to email out to all of you when it's finished. We're working with a monitoring and evaluation specialist we have in-house at Hammond East with input from the folks at ETS on that survey to get input from you in terms of organizing the workshop. Thank you very much for your attention.